Welcome to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. Okay, so I know we've got to March. One thing we can do is start to sow the broccoli. Now, broccoli has about a 12-week sort of, from planting to actually cropping. And what you can actually get away with is a succession of crops of these. Now, I tried to do this last year, but because the weather was as it was, unfortunately I wasn't able to do it. But this year, what I am definitely going to do is to grow 3 successional crops of broccoli. Now, in each of these packets there's 50 seeds. This is the Samson F1 variety, which is always a good variety. And basically, all you need to do is, obviously this time of year they'll germinate quite well. All brassicas will germinate in reasonably low temperatures, and these will take about 7 days or so to come off. So, tray of compost. This is good quality clover compost. As long as the compost is fine enough, it'll get away quite nicely, because you want to bury these reasonably shallow, about ½ centimetre or so. Roughly get it sort of level, and then with a piece of wood, what you want to do is sort of firm it down. Now, the reason for firming it down, brassicas like firm ground anyway. They don't like the ground to be loose. But with the seeds, what you want to do is, because it's like a hard case on the seed, what you want is the compost to be in definite contact with the compost. So as you water it, the seed is in contact with the water. Then it'll sort of break the harder outer case, if you like, or soften the outer case, and then the seed will be able to come through. So what I'm going to do with this is basically sow them onto the compost as evenly as I possibly can do, and then in a few weeks' time, as I say, these will germinate in about a week's time. Within 3 weeks' time, they're going to be about 2 inches high in the compost. And then what you do is you basically prick them out by just getting a little thing and then pulling them out. And then I'll plant them up into the square pot, sort of a 4-inch square pot. Grow them in there for about another sort of 3 weeks or so. And then they'll be ready to sort of plant outside. So this bit's the easy bit. All you got to do basically is get the seed out, and the seeds are like small, sort of brown balls. So there you go. That's what 50 seeds look like. I may well get another packet actually, but that's what the seeds look like. Right, and all you want to do is, as I say, because you're going to prick these out, what you want to try and do is plant them about 1 inch or so apart, so when you come to prick them out, you can sort of pull them apart and make the least amount of disruption to the roots of the plant. Then you're not going to break any of the roots, and then therefore the plant will be that much more stronger for that. This takes a little bit of patience to do this, obviously, but it does pay off later on when you're pricking them out. So I'm just doing sort of little rows of 5 seeds along here. Then I should get ideally 10 rows of this 50 seeds. And then as soon as I've got these into the rows, as I say, what you want to do is bury them in, just cover them over with about ½ centimetre of 1/4 inch or so of compost, and then tamp them down again. Just to give them a little helping hand, what you can do, as I say, is put some glass over, like I did with the other plants. But to be honest with you, these do germinate at reasonably low temperatures. Right, okay, I think I've got them about as far apart as I can get them. So as I say, what I've got here is some dry compost. and all I'm doing is just sprinkling that over. You don't want too much, but what you want to most certainly do is you want to cover the seed so that the seed's in contact with the water, and then obviously that'll soften the outer case of the seed, and that'll then get it to germinate much quicker. Keep these moist. Obviously water them with sort of tepid water. Don't get water straight out your tap or your water butt with these. Ideally, again, use tap water at least till they've germinated, just in case there's any bugs in the water. Right, so now I've got, that's about ½ centimetre of compost on top. Right, just smooth that over, and again go over with your little piece of wood like that, just tamping it down, and what that does is obviously brings the seeds into contact with the compost. Give that a good water, as I say, put a piece of glass over it if you've got it. Main place so you know what they are, and then these will come up in the next 7 to 14 days. And then we'll be able to sort of prick these out in about 3 weeks' time, and I'll show you what that how to do that in a few weeks' time, as I say. But as I say, if you want to plant cabbage, kale, broccoli, cauliflower, anything like that, this is the best way to do it, and now is the right sort of time of year to start to put them all together. But that's how you do calabrese or broccoli. Okay, so on to strawberries now. Now, most of the strawberries that I've got in the garden, I've actually grown them through sort of runners coming off the mother plant, and then you separate the runners, and then you get small baby strawberry plants, and you end up with something like this. Now, these are some that I took last year. As you can see, the strawberry plant is growing there. There's a few weeds in there, but that's a good healthy, there's actually 2 strawberry plants in there which I'll be growing on later on. But you can actually grow strawberries as well from seeds, so I thought I'd give that a go this year. Now, you don't get many seeds for your money. I don't know how many seeds, there's 15 seeds in here, so that's a variety. It's an F1 hybrid, as you can see there, from Thompson and Morgan. And so what I'm going to do is just quickly show you how to plant these. Now, I have grown alpine strawberries on the channel before now, but these are the standard sort of strawberries. And what I'm going to do is introduce these into a new strawberry bed, which is where the celery was grown last year, so that's going to become a strawberry bed. So I'm not expecting to get any fruit off these this year, but I can get the plants established and plant them in for next year. But I want to get them started now. So what I'm going to do is plant them in these modules, so that I can sort of basically leave them to grow and not disturb them after they've grown. So I'm just going to put some more in here. Right, the compost is not too firm, and all I'm going to do is put 1 seed in each. If there's a few spare seeds, I'll put them in. So I don't know if you can see them, but they're the 2. Right, so you don't need to put these too deep. Right, before I put the seed in, what I'm going to do is just push that one into there, and that one into there. Just give a nice level base. Right, so the seeds are going to be really small. So there are the seeds, and you can see them like little white. I don't know if you can see them on my hand. There's one just there. You can see the ones down there. Right, so what I'm going to do is very carefully put one of these seeds in each one of these cells. It's easier said than done, because they are really small. Right in the middle if you can get them in there. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's actually snowing outside now, so hopefully it won't do it for too long. Right, so I'm just putting a little teeny bit of compost on each one of those seeds because they're so small. Just a little pinch on there. Right, just tap them down. And then what you want to do is water them with a really fine rose, because you can easily dislodge these seeds. Well, there's the hail starting. So I'm just going to open this up now. Obviously do it over what you're planting it into. Now you can just see there's 4 more seeds at the bottom there, I don't know if you can see them. which is just what I need to finish this up. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm just going to push them in to make a little indentation with my finger, an indent, and then just put a little pinch of compost over the top. Now I'll water them really carefully now with, as I say, a fine rose. You need to keep them reasonably moist, not too wet though. Obviously label them up, and then I'll show these in a couple of weeks' time when they grow. But these will be really slow to start with, and then they'll really start to grow to the round sort of May, June time when the weather really warms up. But those are the strawberries. Okay, so on to the tomatoes now. I'm going to be growing 4 varieties this year. The first one is Moneymaker. Now this comes from Wilco's. Most seed suppliers will do Moneymaker. This is by far the one that I strongly recommend. Nice tasting tomato, good size, easy to grow, and they don't sort of tend to be too sort of prone to disease, but these are the ones that I always grow every year. Always get very good results from these. Very heavy cropper, so if you've not grown tomatoes before, this is a good one to start with. So that's Moneymaker. I'm also going to grow Allotment, which comes from Thompson & Morgan. Now this is sort of derived from this is a variety derived from Moneymaker. So this is a very similar tomato, but there's not a lot of difference between them, to be honest with you. Gardener's Delight, these are the small cherry type tomatoes. I'm going to be growing a few of those, just 2 or 3 plants, and then also the Golden Sunshine, the yellow variety. Again, a nice tomato. I grew some of these last year. I'm just going to be growing sort of 3 or 4 plants of those in the large greenhouse. So tomatoes can't be sort of too hard to grow. Basically all we need to do is get a tray. Now these are the ones that are, this is for the Moneymaker, and all I'm going to do is put in around 2 to 3 inches of compost in there, sort of level it all off like that. With your piece of wood, just sort of firm that down. You don't want it too firm, but just sort of firm it down like that. Now this is pretty much the earliest you can do your tomatoes, but it's a good idea to get them in now. So obviously the Moneymaker, I'm going to be growing probably most of the seeds in here, to be honest with you. I don't know how many seeds are in here. Let's have a quick look. Does it say? Somewhere. It's probably quite a few, but I'm going to be growing probably about 40 plants of this. Then I'll pick out the best ones out of here, and these will be the ones that go into the large greenhouse. So tomato seeds kind of look like that, obviously very similar to what you get in the middle of a tomato. Now I'm going to be growing them in here and then pricking them out in a few weeks' time as soon as they've started to grow. So what you want to do is try and plant them about an inch and a half apart, in sort of small rows in the compost like that. And obviously I'll be pricking these out and putting these into small pots, something about sort of that size, in a few weeks' time. But the best way I found to do it is to germinate them like this, get them growing, and then as soon as they're about 1 inch to 2 inches high, then you can transplant them into the pots, and then you grow them on in the pots for another few weeks, and then you can plant them out into your greenhouse. Now if you don't have a greenhouse, you can grow these varieties outside. There are varieties that grow better outside, to be honest with you, but Moneymaker, Alicante and the Golden Sunrise, you can grow them outside. What I suggest you do is you put them in a sunny position, but one that's also not too windy, basically because what you want a ventilated area, because the one thing that tomatoes suffer from is blight. So what you want to do is get it so it's ventilated, so you don't get sort of stagnant air around them, because that's when blight is a fungus, and obviously stagnant air is obviously where it'll where that'll thrive. But if you get them in a sort of reasonably well ventilated area, and then try and keep the air around them reasonably warm, then you should have good success outside. You don't necessarily need to have a greenhouse to do this, and obviously you can grow them on a windowsill inside the house, but these plants do tend to get quite big. Right, so I don't know if you can see that, but I've put the seeds in like that very quickly. Obviously if you're not doing a video like me, you can take your time on that. Right, now all I'm going to do now is put a very sort of shallow bit of compost over the top. You only need a few millimetres of compost really, like that. Right, then as soon as you've done that, get your piece of your wood again, and then just basically push that down. And basically the reason you're doing this is obviously to get contact with between the seeds and the compost, to keep the seeds wet. Now I'm going to put that across the other side now. Just put a name tag in there, put a piece of glass over just to keep it warm for the first few weeks till it germinates, and then before you know where you are, they'll all germinate and will start to look something like that within a week or so. You can just see the little seedlets coming through, seedlings coming through, and then just keep that moist, not too wet but moist, and then they'll come through. Then you can, as I say, in a few weeks time you can prick them out into the larger pots and then start to grow them on. But that's what you need to do with the tomatoes. They're all exactly the same, so irrespective of the variety, that's the way to do it. Obviously the Golden Sunshine and also the Gardener's Delight, I'll only be growing a few of those, so what I'll probably do is just put a few seeds into a small pot like that, because I only need about 2 or 3 plants of each one. But I'll grow probably 5 or 6 and then obviously take the best ones out of there. So that's what you need to be doing with your tomatoes now. Okay, so next on the agenda are sweet peas. Now obviously these are the ones that we saved last year. I don't know if you can see, you got some little sort of seeds in there within the pods. So I find that these are best planted in these sort of modules, which are kind of sort of 2.5 to 3 inches in sort of diameter, so you get 15 in a tray. This is much easier to plant them out later on. These aren't going to be transplanted in any way, shape or form. I'm literally going to just take these straight out and put them into the ground as they are, and I find this is the easiest way of doing it. So I've just filled these full of clover compost, and what I do is basically just make an indention, put sort of 3 fingers together like that, make an indention in the middle, because what you want is the seed to go into the middle. Now sweet pea seeds, you don't want to plant them too deep, but I would say you want them about half an inch down in the roughly in the soil. You don't want them to be sort of too deep, but I'd say half an inch or so is sort of ideal. Again, you can obviously the size of the seed, you can sort of gauge from that how deep they need to be really. But obviously making an indentation in the middle of the trays like that. Now, depending on if they're bought seed or if they're your own seed, I would recommend that I find that your own seed doesn't tend to, or seed that you've saved yourself, doesn't tend to germinate quite as well as shop bought seed was. As you can see, I've got, those are the seeds there, look. So what I'm going to do is put 4 seeds in each one, trying to get them so that the seeds aren't actually touching each other. I know this is slightly off screen for you, but if you can get into a kind of rhythm of just getting the pods. This is why I don't pod them. Get the seeds out of the pods in the back end of the year, because I find it easier to do it this way, because you can just drop the seeds straight from the pods into the little pots. As you can see there, you can see the seeds actually in the pods. As I say, you're looking to put 4 seeds, and I would say you're probably going to be getting something like 50% germination rate from these. I would imagine that's where I would say is typical from your own bought seed. I would say the ones from the shops, you most certainly to get a higher, possibly 80 or 90, if not 100% germination rate. but I've just found with the ones that I save myself, I don't typically get you know, sort of a too high a yield rate on the old germination. But what you want to be doing is putting these in little bunches in the ground, and you'll plant these straight from here straight into the ground, and the rather than disturbing the roots, because these will grow quite quickly. Now you can plant these right from January really. But what I have found with sweet peas is you can plant them in January, but I don't think you really gain anything from doing that, because if you plant some in January and then plant some in sort of March, by the time you get to the end of April they're pretty much the same size anyway, so it's probably much easier just to plant them now than it is to plant them any earlier. But I know people who plant sweet peas in January, ready for the fall, you know, the coming year. So all I've done there is just put a bit of compost on the top. I'll just show you again. Basically, I'm just cracking open the pods. Obviously, if you plant them from you know, from bought seed, obviously, you know, you don't get too many seeds in the pod. But I would say put 2 seeds in each of these rather than 4 like I'm doing. Try to get them as separate as you can. Now, these will potentially take a couple of weeks before you start to see any kind of germination from them, but as soon as they have germinated they will start to grow quite quickly, and these will grow reasonably quickly, and you can put them out really, I would say you can get these out in sort of May time. You know, I wouldn't worry too much about the late frosts. I'd sort of get these out. To be honest with you. So as soon as as I say, as soon as you've got them in the compost, all you need to do then is put a little bit of compost over the top, and then they're good to go. So these are really easy to grow. They're a nice plant to grow, but obviously quite rewarding. If you want sweet peas to last the whole season, you need to keep picking them. Don't enjoy sweet peas on the plant. If you leave them on the plant, they'll run to seed and then the plant will die back. Whereas if you keep picking them and taking them in the house, they'll just keep growing and growing and growing. So if you want sweet peas to last, you need to you know, keep picking the flowers and take them in the house. So these are definitely a flower to you know, obviously enjoy it in the garden, but you know, you're much better off to pick them and take them in the house, and then you know, the plant will grow that much longer. So I've just discarded some seeds here. I'll just quickly show you those. You can see those seeds are kind of a little bit shriveled. So because they're like that, I've kind of discarded them. What you want are nice sort of plump seeds. Let me just show you. So you want seeds that look like that. That are nice and round and plump. Those are the ones that will grow well. Any that are kind of shriveled are less likely to grow well. I'm not saying they won't grow, but they're less likely to grow. Right, so as soon as we've got that, I'll just put these few in here. Right, so again, I've got 4 to 5 seeds in each of the ones. Make sure that the seeds aren't touching each other. Try and spread them as much as you possibly can do. And as I say, all I'm doing now is just putting, sprinkling a little bit of compost over the top, like that. Make sure that they're buried, obviously. Now, you need to keep these damp, you know, keep them watered. You don't want them sitting in water, but you need to water these on a regular basis. As I say, just firm them down gently. You don't need to put too much pressure on. That's more than enough. Right, so just water them, keep them in a reasonably warm position in the greenhouse, and they'll germinate in the next sort of next 2 weeks really. Okay, so next on the list are hollyhocks. Now hollyhocks are the plants that I grow on the side of the greenhouse here. They're sort of tall and you get flowers all the way up the stalk. Now the seeds kind of look like that, and basically again you save these by basically just getting the after it's finished flowering, you get the seed pod off, and then in each seed pod, which is like a round circle, you get, I don't know, about 40 or 50 seeds in each one. So all I'm going to do is get a tray like this. Now, hollyhocks are biennial by definition, so they're a herbaceous plant, and basically what happens is the first year they grow, they will basically grow the plant and the root and all the rest of it, and then it's the second year that they actually sort of throw up the flowering stalk and actually flower for you. So what you typically tend to do is you need to grow these in your vegetable garden for the first year, let them establish themselves and sort of grow all the roots and everything else, and then it's the second year you can put them into your flower garden and get them to get them to flower. Now I've had some that have flowered for many years, I'd say 6, 7, 8 years they flowered for. So all I'm doing is just sprinkling them on the ground like that. You don't need to be too fussy because I'll be pricking these out in a few weeks' time. So as you can see, I've got a reasonable number of seeds there. Obviously you can take more time on this if you do it yourself. So I'm just spreading them out, so when I prick them out I can get as much root out as possible. Obviously there's quite a lot there, there's got to be 100 or so seed there. And then all you need to do is put a little bit of compost over the top. You don't need to bury them too deep, you just need to keep the seeds wet really. Like that. And then with your piece of wood again, all you need to do is just tamp down the soil. Again, what this is doing is making sure that the seed is in contact with the compost so it stays damp. Put a label in, water them. You can put a piece of glass over, but they should germinate without, to be honest with you. As I say, they're black ones, so I have some black ones in my flower garden, which are those ones. I've also got the white ones from the allotment here. They're exactly the same, they're the seeds there. I'll be putting them in a moment, but it's exactly the same. All you need to do is label that up now, water them, and then they'll grow on. And I'll show you these in a couple of weeks' time as soon as they started to sort of germinate. As soon as they get to sort of 1.5 inches high, what you need to do then is transplant them out into pots just to grow them on in the greenhouse a little bit longer, and then plant them outside in a piece of ground that, in the vegetable patch or whatever. Grow them on this year, and then next year is the year that they'll actually flower, but you need to be sort of ahead of the game with these. Get them in now and then they can germinate. Get yourself some nice healthy plants for next year. They'll overwinter, so they're herbaceous, they'll die down to just the roots, and then next year they'll start growing again, and then you'll get these big beautiful black and white flowers. Obviously they do come in other colours, they come in pinks and purples as well. Well, most colours to be honest. I've seen orange ones and yellow ones as well, but I'll show you these in a few weeks' time as I'm pricking them out, and then we can put them into the garden for later. So, I hope this episode was of some use to you. Please don't hesitate to put any comments or questions you got below, and I'll always get back to you, and I'll see you on the next episode of Jim's on the Garden.